All right, this is a real brief tutorial on view and data, getting the data off of an EpiForm. So when you have your form, there's this outlying hamburger up in the top right with some options. It does a few different things that I don't think are terribly related, but it is helpful just to know what these do. So when I'm editing a form, I tend not to use the on-page editing. The reason for that is because it gives the impression that what you're looking at is what the form will end up looking like for the user, but that's not necessarily the case. As you can see, it's pulling in items from every single form step, and it is also going to ignore your dependency. If I were to pull up a different form that I know has different logic and dependency, you'd notice that all of it is going to be viewable on the on-page editing area. So all of these four things are viewable here, but when you're actually doing the form, it's not viewable. So while it kind of gives the impression that you're doing on-page editing, it doesn't respect dependency, and so that's an issue because a lot of these things don't even show up on the form when somebody's really filling them out. And on top of that, in fact, you cannot make on-page edits, so there's really not a use to looking at it this way. I don't really see any utility in viewing the on-page editing. I do the all properties instead, and then what I prefer to do is have the form already on a page so that I can toggle between the two. And so I can have my form on a live page. It can often it's just a test page that's not viewable. The student couldn't just navigate there. It would just be a test page that's technically live but not findable or navigate. Somebody couldn't navigate to it. And I'll just refresh the page every time I make a new change here and then publish it. So I can kind of toggle back and forth and see the actual user interface. So I don't use the on-page editing, I use the all properties. The other thing that's up here is the data. So for some reason they snuck the data in right up here in the top right, form submissions. Some forms you may not have a reason to send an output email. And so while it's helpful on most forms to go into the settings and create an email because it triggers a workflow such as performing an education verification for a student or getting them an unofficial transcript, changing their major, or whatever, not all forms do that. And so for our commencement RSVP, we had to cancel the 2020 commencement, but we wanted to ask students what they wanted to do for the 2021 commencement. And we wanted to ask them if they were interested in coming. And in order to do that, we gathered their responses on a EpiForm, but we didn't really need to it didn't need to trigger an immediate workflow. We didn't need to review and approve their request to attend or not attend. They're just letting us know. So the most important thing was really to just gain access to the data. Every form has this area up here with form submissions, and so it actually stores everything. It stores everything as long as you tell it to according to your retention policy. This is the main forms area, content settings, mappings, again, ignore that, but the retention policy is here. We tend to keep everything forever, or if we have a regular schedule of exporting the data, we'll just keep it for 365 days, and then it automatically just wipes out everything older than that, but we've kept a copy of those requests in the shared drive for academic records. So the form submissions are going to look like this. If it's a complex form with many form elements that students need to input information on, it's going to be a little bit hard to know what's going on here. You can't really expand these super easily, and you end up accidentally sorting it, and that's frustrating. All you have to do is click here and download it to an Excel sheet or in another format if you prefer. You can also filter by the date, from date to date, that's a date time field. And if you wanted to delete, you could use the selection here, and it kind of pops open and lets you know like what exactly is going on. So it's pretty intuitive. And that's basically how you would access the data, and that's the differences between the two views.